My name is Tom King, and I'm the founder of Toolkit.law. We're here today to talk about substance abuse testing and the different types of testing that's done. I'm here with Bruce Jefferies, the owner of National Screening Centers and the company that does all of our testing at Toolkit.law for the 6 continents we serve. Well, I guess we could do a 7th continent, but for the 80 plus countries with English-based legal systems. And I'm looking at your website here nationalscreeningcenters.com, but you also have your own store right on our website. We call it the user web store. Bruce, let's talk about this first test that we see listed right here. It says substance abuse test, 5-panel hair analysis for substance abuse testing, marijuana, cocaine, PCP, opioids, methamphetamines, amphetamines. What do we need to know about this test from a legal professional perspective?
That's your basic 5-panel drug test that is most commonly used in pre-employment, random, and the court arenas as far as looking for these drugs listed on the page. However, we do go up to a 17-panel hair test or even an ETG alcohol hair test. But this is the most commonly used. It's the less expensive of the tests, but it still is done by a licensed laboratory. The largest laboratory in the world is who's contracted with my company for over 30 years to run that 5-panel.
Next, I see below here a 10-panel hair analysis for substance and abuse testing. What does it test for? The same things? I see that we don't list all the substances here, but it's got to be those plus more, I would think.
Yeah, that's you're kicking it up a notch. Again, this is a bigger panel. It costs a little bit more, gives you more information. You're talking barbiturates, benzodiazepines, methadone, and all the other drugs listed above. So there may be somebody that's addicted to benzodiazepines like Xanax. And so we're able to pick it up on a 10-panel where the 5-panel doesn't pick it up. But if the person's drug of choice is cocaine or methamphetamine or marijuana or PCP or any of the opiates, then you don't want to go to a 10-panel where you can get your answer in a 5-panel. The 10-panel includes the 5 drugs that were listed above with additional drugs that can be tested.
Now you also list here, so that was $409 US for a 10-panel. I'm looking at a $46 test here. I don't really know if that pricing is exactly correct for a 10-panel urine drug analysis. Is it really just $46?
Yeah, it's $46 for your standard 10-panel urine test that most companies and courts utilize. But again, I'm here to tell you that there's more panels available, but that's the most commonly used drug test is the 10-panel urine test.
So let's talk about in general, when we talk about testing, Bruce, urine in general goes back how far?
On a 10-panel drug test, the longest shelf life of the drug that's in that would be THC, tetrahydrocannabinol delta 9, which can go back, if you're chronic, up to 30 days. Their next drug that lasts longest on the 10-panel would be the benzodiazepine family, and it depends on the milligrams that you're ingesting, but it can go back 14 days. Otherwise, the rest of the drugs listed on this panel will go back 1 to 3 days.
And that would also include alcohol, correct?
This 10-panel does not include alcohol. That would be an add-on. So that would be a little bit of an extra fee, like about $7 more to add alcohol.
So it can detect alcohol for up to 96 hours in the
24 hours.
24 hours. Okay. Next, I see that you list paternity testing. We're going to skip that. We're going to stick on drug testing on this. We'll do paternity testing in a different presentation. Substance abuse test, zero tolerance with exposure 5 panel hair test. I want to talk about the word zero tolerance. It sounds so intimidating. What does it
Well,
really mean, Bruce?
so that panel is called zero tolerance with exposure. It's a two-tier test that we first, before we decontaminize and strip it and give it a hot bath, we test the hair on the original test to see what's they've been exposed to. Environmental exposure. For instance, if you're in a car and you're smoking a bunch of weed, then it will stick to your hair and you'll get a positive hit on marijuana THC. And then after that test is run, you go back to the original sample, get a new aliquot of hair, and you strip the outside of the hair for shampoos, dye, environmental exposure, and then you test what's on the inside of the hair. So when you get the result back, for instance, it may say THC positive, greater than 25 picograms, marijuana metabolite, 3.5 picograms. So what that's going to tell you is not only are they smoking it, but they are also around it. Sometimes you may get a result that says THC positive, 15 picograms, marijuana metabolite negative. So that is telling you that you are being in contact with THC smoke, whether you're at a friend's apartment and watching the football game and they're smoking weed, but you're going like,
No,
can't.
no, no. You were held against your will and transported to a cartel party. They said you could not partake, but you could just breathe it in the secondary smoke.
You won't ever test positive for secondary smoke for marijuana at all. You've got to be locked in a closet for 2 weeks and breathe nothing but the THC that's in the air. I haven't ran into a case where somebody's been kidnapped and tied up and put bound in a closet for up to 2 weeks, and all they could smell was THC smoke.
Yeah, they may have been kidnapped, but not to let them go so they can test positive.
Yeah, no, we get that all the time. That the reason why I'm positive is because my boyfriend smokes marijuana and I breathe it in. There's been clinical studies to prove that otherwise, you're not going to be able to breathe it in and test positive.
Okay, let's look at this next test that you have. This is a substance abuse test, health professional one urine test, expansive prescription and drug panel. What does that mean?
Well, this test was designed for doctors and nurses at hospitals that when they go into surgery, they carry a toolkit with them with a mass amount of drugs. And then when the operation or surgery is over, the toolkit is presented back outside to an inspector, and they go through the toolbox to see what's left and what's been recorded as given to the patient. If they are missing any medication, then they are ordered to come to us and run this health professional one panel. It's an extensive panel that runs about 30 metabolites, and we use it quite often down here at our office.
So this is to find out if health professionals are stealing the prescription drugs designated for the patients.
Correct. Whether it's in surgery or in a private room where they are supposed to give, like for instance, we've caught them on propofol, where they're supposed to give it in their IV bags, but they're not. They're using placebos, and then they're taking the propofol home. And as word travels through that industry, we are contacted to say we might have a doctor that is taking propofol from the hospital. So we'll appear at his house and/or hospital to give him a health professional one drug test. But anybody can use it. It's not just for health individuals. It's for anybody. The courts use it, employers use it. They just need to be educated on what they can and can't do and what they can and can't find, but they can order any test they want to order.
Man, I tell you, if I went through surgery and some doctor was taking my painkillers, I would be fairly upset.
It happens all the time.
When was the last time you caught a health professional doing that?
Last week,
Okay.
it was a nurse.
Next. Okay. Alcohol detection, urine test, ETG. What does that stand for, ETG?
Ethylglucuronide. It's abbreviated for ETG because people can't pronounce it. It's an 80-hour urine test that goes back to see if they've been partaking in adult beverages. The cutoff level is 250 nanograms per milliliter. So anything over that is going to be reported positive. Then we're also looking for the sulfates, which is the metabolite of alcohol. And so we get both on the report, and I'm able to decipher how heavy of a drinker this person is within the past 72 hours.
Substance abuse test, 12 panel hair test. It doesn't say zero tolerance. What's
They're
wrong
just,
with what's wrong with this test? It's not zero tolerance.
they don't make a zero tolerance 12 panel hair test. They only make a 5 panel zero tolerance hair test.
Okay. What does this test for, the 12 panels?
Oh, I don't have the whole list in front of me, Mr. King, but you got the 10 panel above, and then you add two more. It may be buprenorphine, maybe one of the panels, and Ambien may be another panel.
What's the sex drug? Ecstasy, right?
MDMA, yes, we test for that also. In every test, whether it be urine or hair test, you're going to be subject to ecstasy in the amphetamine family.
What do you want to tell us about the amphetamine family?
Well, in the amphetamine family, you're going to get Adderall, Vyvanse, methamphetamine, and ecstasy. And today's time, we're seeing that the drugs that are bought off the street, in particular Adderall, is laced with methamphetamine. And so they show it positive for methamphetamine. They said, I don't do methamphetamine. As we get into their situation, we find out that they ran out of their Adderall and couldn't get a prescription because they were abusing that also, that they were buying Adderall off the street, not knowing it was laced with methamphetamine. So then we come up with a positive test.
Now, I hear if you buy it off the street, the return policy isn't near as good than when you get it at a pharmacy.
Normally they don't give refunds. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Okay. 15 panel hair test. Okay, in family law, I'm used to seeing 10, I guess 12 panel. Well, who would be using a 15 panel?
Well, the attorneys that visit with their clients, and their client will say something to the effect like, "Hey, my wife's doing kratom, or she's doing ketamine, or she's doing Suboxone. Your fives and tens won't catch that. So, there's no reason to run a five or a 10. So we look up in our book and say, well, 15 panel will cover kratom and ketamine or Suboxone. So then you have that availability to look for that specific drug in a 15 panel, but you're still going to get all the others with it, all the street drugs up to a 15 panel.
Ketamine, I tell you what, the Secretary of the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk, he better not take this 15 panel test if it detects ketamine, right?
Yeah, well, it's not legal, in all the states, even though the DEA is in Austin trying to get them on a schedule to make it illegal in the state of Texas, but the House of Representatives has not uh, voted on it and taken it serious enough to
So,
make it.
Bruce, what is ketamine? I have no idea. I have no idea.
Well, ketamine was born recently because of the fact that nobody could test for it. So when these labs started hearing of ketamine, they said it was going to be a fad. And so they said that we're not going to waste our money and try to prove our methodology that we can find ketamine, so we're not going to test for it. Well, as time has passed, they're testing for it because yeah, there's a picture of it because it is a drug is it's on the drugs of abuse. Even though it hasn't got on a schedule, it's just used for euphoria, uh, to get high. Uh, you
What
can,
what are the appropriate uses of it? Because obviously they're selling it here in a controlled scenario. Are there appropriate uses for ketamine?
well, usually veterinarian doctors use it for sedation, but it's anybody can get it now. It's on the open market again. It's coming from China. We hadn't seen the cartels dabbling in it yet, but it could be soon. But the smoke shops will put a banner outside of their office saying ketamine, for sale. And so they're putting it in their coffee, they're putting it in their tea, and they're drinking it to, they say to chill out. But it's something you don't want to mess with because it's highly addictive.
Okay, let's look at the next one. A five-panel nail test.
So a 5 panel nail test gets sent to a special laboratory because there's not, as far as I know or care, around, but the one I choose is fully licensed. They've been using it for many years. They've been testing it for many years. They're highly accepted in the legal system. Uh, Again, Harris County, all the way up to the East Coast, they're known to be able to find substances in the fingernail test. That's like the 5 panel hair test. It images the same drugs, and the fingernails will go back up to 6 months, and the toenails can go up to 1 year. So once it gets trapped in your fingernails, we're able to extract it and tell you what drug they've been using long term.
Okay, the poison and heavy metals test. Does this determine whether or not somebody likes to listen to Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath? Is that what this is?
Well, when they're on ketamine, that's what they're doing. They're listening to heavy rock and the THC, which has been tampered with by scientists to get the potency on marijuana from 0.05 to 94% THC Delta 9, which can knock you out all day. I mean, put you to sleep.
Okay,
And then
but what do you mean by heavy metals?
heavy metals are lead, mercury, zinc, aluminum, arsenic. Um, that panel is designed by the largest crime lab in the United States, which we contract with. I only use the best labs in the world, and they're able to tell us if their wife was trying to give antifreeze to the husband because it's sweet, and they'll inject it in chicken. Where you
She wanted to keep him warm.
She wanted to keep him warm in the coffin, absolutely. And we have caught many people doing that. We caught last month elderly rich man in a nursing home that was being given heavy metals where he shouldn't even had any metals in his system. So the family is pursuing a civil and or criminal lawsuit against this facility with their loved one that is going downhill, vomiting, losing hair, unable to concentrate, unable to eat, and they knew something was wrong. So they dispatched us to the nursing home, and we had some roadblocks to get through, but we did get through it. We got the sample from the man. We cut his hair, and we found what we needed to find, and we gave it back to the attorney of record, and they're pursuing legal action. But this is not uncommon. We get this all the time from heavy metal testing where you shouldn't have it. For instance, another good example, it was a media case where a lady was deathly sick on her deathbed, and she contracted with us and said, "I don't know, you got to find it, you got to find it." Come to find out, the man used to be in a rock band. He was he was the manager of the band. He was in charge of all the instruments, transportation, and one of the things he transported was the fog machines. And what he was doing was he had the chemicals in the fog machine located in his attic. He then had placed it under the kitchen sink and was putting it in her coffee every morning and bringing it to her, which she said he never had in the past. And so we asked her daughter to go by the house and see if there's anything strange laying around. And she brought it to us, and come to find out it was the chemicals to make the fog. And we were able to test her for that, and we had a positive hit. So he he's not in doing too good right now and wearing orange. Orange is the new black for that man.
Orange is the new black. Okay, let's talk about for those outside of the United States, or maybe they have cases that may come in here. Let's talk about what drug schedules are. We have about 8 minutes left, but the United States Drug Enforcement Administration has what are called schedules. What are schedules, Bruce?
Well, Schedule One is the worst one to be on. That's the most addictive drug that you can be taking. It shows signs of if you try it, you're more than likely going to be addicted to it, and it's the most serious schedule to be on. They're felonies. They're not really approved by the federal government to walk into a pharmacy and get a prescription for them, even though there are some that can be on Schedule One, but it's highly regulated by the pharmaceutical industry to check each doctor out and to make sure he's not over prescribing. Times have changed, and so has these doctors' thought process when they decide to engage with a new patient and find out what drug of choice they're on. Then they have to really monitor that patient and not over prescribe where they could lose their license, which a lot of them have. A lot of them have.
Bruce, why do I not see fentanyl on Schedule One?
Well, it's legal. It's for cancer patients. Most of the time, the fentanyl is a patch that you wear on your arm up for a month. The fentanyl patch, when you go into a pharmacy to retrieve your prescription, you have to be careful. It's best that you go to the drive-through window because it can bring $500 on the street when you're attacked and mugged, and they have spotters inside the pharmacy like shoppers, and then they overhear the pharmacy explaining how to use a fentanyl patch. So they relay the message to their getaway driver in the parking lot, and so they get mugged and robbed, and their fentanyl patches are gone. But fentanyl, it is addictive, but you're hearing more and more about it in the news now because that's the way the cartels are making their money because they can't make it in pot anymore because the United States is legalizing it almost in every state up to a certain amount. So they had to come up with a new plan to make money besides kidnapping. And so they came up with fentanyl and methamphetamine to get it across the border.
So, in fact, isn't fentanyl in some anesthesia?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a high powered narcotic that can definitely knock you out. But fentanyl's been around forever. It's just that the fentanyl that they're making, in the woods without true measurements, they're just dumping it in and mixing it up, and then they're mixing it to make it look like it's an Adderall pill. So you think you're taking Adderall off the street, and then 1 grain, like a salt of grain, can kill you. That's why the police, if they see fentanyl, they wear gloves before they handle it. When I go to the crime lab to retrieve fentanyl to send it to our another crime lab, I have to wear a respirator and a face mask and white clothes and gloves to be totally covered up before I retrieve fentanyl.
What's Schedule 2?
Well, as you get down the schedules, it's less addictive, less repetitive, trying to maneuver your way into the pharmaceutical industry to get your drugs you want. So as the schedule goes down, one, two, three, four, five, six, I think there's up maybe 10 or 11 schedules, then it's just something that starts to get a little bit more non-serious, but it still has a
Okay, well, come on. I mean, cocaine, methamphetamines, methadone, which is the replacement for heroin, right?
yeah, methadone is also addictive too, and methadone is given really to get off opiates and or heroin. You know, you go to a methadone clinic, but yeah, I mean, Schedule Two is still really pushing Schedule One.
Okay,
There's still
let's go to schedule. We got about 4 minutes left. Let's go to Schedule 3.
yeah, so you're talking of certain drugs that aren't as addictive. It's easier to get off of. I believe Schedule 3 has like coding number 3 with Tylenol. Some people will get on it for a while, but it's not, I have to have it. You've got anabolic steroids, which are banned by the Olympics and any professional uh, uh, organization, boxing. We do the boxers, we do the MMA fighters. Our company's contracted to test them for steroids,
Here's
which can let.
here's something you and I do not need anymore of testosterone. We're shining examples, but some people need testosterone, but it's still a Schedule 3 controlled substance.
Yeah, it is for now. The cutoff is less than six. Every human being that has testosterone will be around six or below. So when we test for testosterone and we sit in the 20s, 30s, or 40s, and we know they're getting a shot from somewhere, you can have a prescription for it, but some people overdo it. They buy it on the black market, and they're just full of testosterone, which can cause road rage, can cause domestic violence. So it's not as addictive as it sounds, but in my career, yes, I've had men and women that have abused testosterone.
Schedule 4 and Schedule 5 as we round out the last 2 minutes, please.
Yeah, Schedule 4 is, you're getting down the schedule, so it's not as highly addictive drugs that you have to have. It's something you might take as needed. But again, there is, I don't make up these schedules, but some of these drugs I see in Schedule 4s should be on Schedule 2 at least, if not 3. It needs to move up a notch because we're seeing them mix it with alcohol. As the internet has exploded, they look at ways how to get high on, let's say, Valium or benzodiazepines. They say to really get high, my experience was to drink alcohol, which can cause death. I've had people that are on
Yeah, but
our.
but that way you end on a high note, Bruce.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty low
The
high
best
note.
high I ever had. It was so good it killed me.
Well, believe it or not, I had a customer come in and met with me at my desk and told me that his roommate had passed away a week prior to him taking a test. He's going through a divorce. And I said, "What's your drug of choice?" He says, "Methamphetamine." I said, "Ooh, you need to get off that stuff." He goes, "Yeah, I know I should because my roommate died. I think it was either a week or 2 weeks prior to me meeting this guy." And I said, "Yeah, well, that should tell you something." He goes, "It did tell me something. I switched to his pusher because if his methamphetamine's that good, that's what I want to take."
Yeah. Okay.
I
Just
just,
great,
looked
great
at him.
citizens of the world. Okay. Let's round out with Schedule 5.
Yeah, Schedule 5 is like over the counter type medications. There's no real concern about being fiending. I've got to have it. I got to have it. It just has to be on a schedule so that you can keep record of what they're doing. But again, any of these drugs on here can be abused because you have like codeine, you have Lyrica. Yeah, believe it or not, you can get addicted to that too. It just depends on where you are. Betty Ford, her drug of choice was mouthwash. So she drank mouthwash.
Oh, oh,
She drank mouthwash to, basically get a buzz from out the alcohol inside the mouthwash. So she drank it every day. She ended up at the Addiction Institute, where I ended up studying, and she got so much out of it. That's how she opened up the Betty Ford Clinic in California, was due to the fact that she wanted to help the Americans and whoever wanted to go and visit her rehab center. And as we know of today, Betty Ford Clinic is highly successful.
absolutely. And I remember you tell me stories about when you went there. Okay. So as we wrap up, you're with National Screening Centers. You do all this, you do all the drug and paternity testing behind Toolkit.law. If people go to Toolkit.law, they go to the tools section and they can go to backgrounder and they can see the paternity testing information as well as the blood alcohol testing information and all that such related information that we have. So that concludes this presentation. Bruce Jefferies with National Screening Centers. Thank you again.
Thank you.